Hi guys, please like, share and subscribe and contact this number if you want full lectures of any CM or CS subjects. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm starting with chapter number 2 of subject CM2, and here we talk about utility theory. Now, if you are an economic student, you would have heard this term utility theory earlier. And in economics, especially in microeconomics, utility theory is used to assess the preferences of consumers, okay, or even firms, okay. But primarily it's a topic from consumer theory, where you have a certain consumers who are consuming a certain amount of goods, okay, and different units of consumption give different amount of utility to these people, okay. Now that is what utility theory typically in economics is, but we will be studying it in terms of uh, finance, okay. So we'll be talking about basically utility theory for investments, right? Where what you have is you have a amount of wealth, okay. Any investor has a certain amount of wealth with them, and each level of wealth has some associated utility associated with it, okay. And any investment, okay, any investment is like a lottery, okay. How is it like a lottery? I'll tell you. uh, so you have your given amount of wealth, okay. Now what you can do, let's say you have a wealth of 100 pounds, you can either choose to keep it with yourself or you can put it into some investment, okay. So if you decide to put it into an investment, let's say there is an investment which gives a 20% return with a probability of 50%, and let's say there this is 20% profit, or it can lead to a 15% loss with a probability of 50%. So we are dealing with investments under uncertainty. There is some probability associated, and there is some probability of profit and some probability of loss, and you can choose to invest any amount out of your wealth into this investment. So what is the amount of investment that you will make, and whether you will invest any amount of money into this investment or not, that is the kind of question we are dealing with, okay. At the end of the year, if you do choose to invest, you can either have 120 pounds if you make a profit of 20%, or you can have, if you make a 15% loss, you can have 85 pounds, right? That is what it will look like. So what will be your expected wealth at the end of the year? If I ask you what would be your expected wealth at the end of the year, so your expected wealth would be the expected amount of money you'll have. So 120 with a probability of 50% and 85 with a probability of 50%. So what does that come out to be? That is 60 plus 50% of 85 is 42.5. So you'll have essentially 102.5 pounds. This is the amount of money that you'll have, okay. So basically you have an expectation to make a profit of 2.5 pounds, okay. So this is your expected amount of wealth. Now this investment, if you put up all your money into this investment, it gives you a profit of 2.5 pounds, right? So the investor, you might think that the investor is likely to put in this amount into this investment, but actually you cannot be sure, because there is some risk that the investor is taking. He won't ever have 102.5 pounds at the end of the year, rather he would either have 85 or he would have 120. So whether he is willing to take risk or not, that is what determines whether he'll put up his money into this investment or not, right? So essentially every investor has different risk appetite. Every investor has different risk appetite, based on which they invest or don't invest. And this risk appetite of the investor is reflected by their utility function. And the expected utility theory says that an investor invests into the asset that maximizes his or her expected utility. Not his or her expected wealth, but his or her expected utility of wealth. Okay, fine. So that is the idea we work with. Now, how do we know the investor's expected utility function, or their utility function to be exact? There is no way to know it exactly. Okay, you cannot say that the consumers utilities are well behaved and they have a particular functional form. So this whole approach is very theoretical, if you would see. Okay, but still we use it, and still we try to figure out what kind of a utility function that the consumer has or the investor has, and based on that we try to predict whether he will invest into a security or not. And a certain type of utility function for the investor has to follow a certain rules that we work with. One common example of a utility function is the log utility function. So your utility of wealth is taken as the log of wealth. This is a utility function. So if I want to calculate what is the amount of utility this £100 gives me, I will take log of 100. That will be the amount of utility. Okay, so if I have to calculate the expected utility in this scenario, if I invest all my money into this security, what will that look like? My expected utility will be, I will have a wealth of 120 with a probability of 50%, and I will have a wealth of 85 with a probability of 50%. So my expected utility will be log of 120 will be my utility in one case with a probability of 50%, and log of 85 will be my utility in the other case with a probability of 50%. Right, so my expected utility of wealth, if I put all my money, into this investment, that is how much? That is this number. Let's see what it turns out to be, and we'll figure out if how much this if this person will invest into this investment or not. So earlier his utility of wealth was log of 100. So what is that? Log of 100. Log, I am taking natural log. Okay, it's 4.605. Okay, this was his utility. In the other case, what is his utility? It's log of, sorry, ln. I'll have to take ln. Where did I miss ln? Ln of 120 into 0.5 plus ln of 85 into 0.5. So this is 4.615. So this investor will still invest into this investment because it increases his expected utility. If these are the only two options available to him, either you invest complete amount or you keep complete amount with yourself, then he will choose to invest. Okay, but if you give him other options like invest half the amount and keep half the amount or something like that, then the case can be different. Okay, so that is the idea here. Okay, so what we try to do is we try to maximize the consumer's expected utility, and whichever investment or whichever asset maximizes the expected utility out of all the available options, that is the one that the consumer prefers. Okay, so that is the general theory I gave you. Now let's get into a bit more of technicalities of this. Alright, so let's start working with this. We have got three questions. Derive an expression for expectation of investor X's next period wealth. So you have to find the expectation of the wealth. Okay, if he invests a proportion A of his current wealth W in equity A, which pays either -4% or 8% with respective probabilities of 1/4 and 3/4, and the rest in a non-interest bearing bank account. Okay, so what will be the amount that he'll have at the end of the year? This is the expectation of the wealth he has. Okay, So see, at the end of the year, his wealth would be W1 minus A. This proportion will be left into the bank account, okay? And WA, this proportion will be invested, okay? So that is how it will work, okay? And this WA, it will either grow with 8%, that is, you will take 1.08, and this will happen with a probability of 3 by 4th, okay? So 3 by 4, and 0.96, that is, it would reduce by 4% with a probability of 1 by 4. That's it. This is your expected wealth, right? And yeah, that's how it will work, okay? So you can just simplify this expression if you want to further, right? Yeah. Second question. State an expression for the expectation of the next period utility of the investor. Again, assuming that he invests proportion A in equity A and rest of it in the non-interest bearing bank account, using he has a utility function, u of w is equal to log of w, okay. So the utility from wealth is log w, and you have to find the expected utility this time. So see, there can be two cases, okay. In one case, his wealth will grow, I mean a proportion of his wealth will grow with 8% increase, and the probability is 3 by 4 for that, or it will reduce to 0.96, the probability for that is 1 by 4, okay. So we have to calculate the expected utility and not the expected wealth, okay. So what would be the utility in both the cases, case 1 and case 2? Let me divide it, okay. Case 1, it would be log of w into 1 minus a. This proportion is kept in the non-interest bearing part, plus 1.08 into WA. This is the first case, right? This will be his wealth. In the second case, his wealth will be this will be his utility, sorry, okay. So u of w is equal to these two in these two cases, w into 1 minus a plus 0.96 into wa. This will be his utility in the second case. See, you cannot multiply the probabilities with the wealth. You have to multiply them with the utility functions, right? So this is the utility in the first case, and this is the utility in the second case, okay. What is the probability of this? P capital W is equal to small w, okay, or you can say P capital U is equal to small u, whatever you want to call it. It's 1 by 4 and 3 by 4, okay. 1 by 4 in this case, 3 by 4 in this case, right? So your expected utility would look like this, right? So it would just be, in the first case, it just becomes log of, so w will come out and you will have 0.08 WA. So it will be W plus 0.08 WA into 3 plus log of W minus 0.04 WA, this whole thing divided by 4. This will be your answer, okay. So that is how it works. This is your final expression. Next, okay, so this is what expected utility, expectation of u of w, okay. You took the utilities, individual utilities in both the cases, and then you multiplied the probabilities. You cannot first calculate the expected wealth and then take the utility. That would be the utility of the expected wealth. You have to calculate the expected utility. So this is how you do it. Let's move on. Next one is what an investor has an initial wealth of 100 pounds, which is currently invested in a non-interest bearing account. The utility function is of this form, where W is the investor's wealth at any time. Now, the investment Z offers a return of negative 18% or positive 20% with equal probability. Okay, so you have 100 pounds of money and you are planning to invest some part of it, and you have an investment which pays either 20% positive or 18% negative. What is the investor A's expected utility if nothing is invested in investment Z? Okay, if nothing is invested, then 100 pound he has, this will remain as 100 pounds, so his expected utility would be very simple. It would be whatever his current wealth is. It won't change at the end of the year. There is no way it can change. There is no uncertainty. So this is a certain outcome. So its expected utility will just be the utility itself, which is log of 100. Okay, fair enough. Second part. What if what is their utility if they are entirely invested in investment Z? So in this case, if they completely invest in this, then what happens is you have to calculate the expected utility. So log of in one of the cases they'll have a wealth of 100 minus 18%, which is 82. This with the probability of 0.5 plus they'll have $120, that too with a probability of 50%. So this is how it will work. This will be your answer. Simplify it. So it's a log of 82 into 0.5 plus log of 120 into 0.5. It will be 4.5971. And in the previous case, what was it? $4.605. So it's better not to invest rather than investing, right? So this is one of those cases where expected wealth is higher. In the second case, expected wealth will be higher because there is a higher probability of increase. The amount of increase is higher than the amount of decrease, and the probability is equal. So the expected wealth in the second case you can calculate would be higher, but the expected utility of wealth is lower. So the investor would not so if he has only two options, either this or this, then he'll choose not to invest. Okay, right? But that is not the main question. The main question is part 3. What proportion A of wealth should be invested in investment Z to maximize the expected utility? So if you want to maximize the expected utility, then what proportion will you invest into Z? Of what proportion of wealth will you invest into Z? That is the question. So let's say you decide to invest A into the investment. Okay, so this is the proportion invested. Right, so what would be your expected utility at the end of the year? It would be $100. Okay, 100 you had initially. Okay, so I have to take a log of 100. Okay, in case you have this loss of 18%. Okay, so minus 18% of 100. So what would be the proportion that you have invested? It would be A into 100, right? And of this you will have an 18% loss. So yeah, out of this you will have an 18% loss. So this would be your this would be your wealth at the end of the year if you have an 18% loss. Let me write it more clearly for you. So what I'm saying is, let's say you do not invest 1 minus A and you invest A. Okay, so 1 minus A into 100 plus For the remaining portion, you will have A into 100 which you have invested, and it would have lost 18%. So 1 minus 0.18. Okay, so this is what it will look like. I'll simplify this as well. If I simplify this part just becomes, okay, let me simplify in the next step only. So this is your wealth, and this is your expected this is your utility of wealth in case you lose and you don't gain. This will happen with 50% probability. The other case is log of, so let's just see, you have 100 and you didn't invest 1 minus A. Okay, so this remained as it is. The part you invested is A into 100, right? And on this you had a gain. You had a gain of how much? 20%. So this will be multiplied with 1.2, and this is multiplied with 0.5. So this is your expression for the expected utility of wealth. To simplify, this is log of, so how will this work? This will be 1 minus, this is 100A, this is negative 100A, and this will be positive 100A into 0.82. So what will remain will be 0.18 into 100A, right? So that will just be equal to 100 minus 18A. Okay, that will be your expression if you simplify this whole thing. Into 0.5, and the other one will be log of 100 plus 20A into 0.5. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to find the value of A which maximizes this expression. So you'll have to maximize. How do you maximize? In order to maximize, it's simple, you'll have to differentiate. So E dash U, or I should write DEU by DA, when I'm differentiating with respect to A, it just becomes minus 1 upon 100 minus 18A multiplied with 18, right? So it will just become negative, and when it's multiplied with 0.5 it just becomes 9. Okay, so this will be the first term, plus this will be 20 upon 100, 20 into 0.5 is 10, 10 upon 100 plus 20A. This is your expression. Okay, and you equate it to 0. When you do this, you take an LCM. So 9 upon 100 minus 18A is equals to 10 upon 100 plus 20A. Take an LCM. So this just becomes 900 plus 180A is equal to 1000 minus 180A. So now if you take in like if you try to find the value of A will turn out to be 1000 minus 900 is 100 divided by 360. So 100 divided by 360. What is this number? Let's just see. So this number is 100 by 360. That is equal to 0.278. This is your answer. Okay, so that's how it works. Let's move on to the next section now. Okay, so these were 3 questions that I solved, and if you invest this proportion of A, like this proportion of your wealth into this investment, that will maximize your expected utility. Okay, so yeah, that is the idea. And like I have to ensure that this is a point of local maxima as well, so I'll have to take the second derivative. So let's just see if the second derivative is negative or not. So for the second derivative, it will be d2 EU by dA square, which will be, this one just becomes, I don't know, let's see. So again it would be 9 upon 100 minus 18a. Okay, and it would be squared and it would become, so this will become negative, right? Because why? Because we already have a negative term and you will have a negative term because this minus 1 will go out, and then again the coefficient of a is 18, so this will just become negative 9 into 18. Okay, so this first term is negative. Let's look at the second term. Second term will be minus 10 into 20a divided by sorry, not 20a, into 20 divided by 100 plus 20a, and this will be squared as well, right? So both these terms are negative, so this is less than 0. That is why this is a point of local maxima. That means that your expected utility will be maximized at this point. Okay, and what is the maximized expected utility? So if you want to find that, you need to put this number a into this equation. Okay, here you need to put the value of a. So if you put in that value, it will just be, it's 0.278, right? So it's 100 minus 18 multiplied with 0.278, okay, multiplied with 0.5 plus log of 100 plus 20 into 0.278, okay, multiplied with 0.5, right? So it's 4.607. That is your maximized utility. Let's see what maximized expected utility. So it's more than this and more than this, right? So yeah, that is your point of local maxima. All right. Okay, so now I'll get into the axioms of expected utility. So these are basically certain rules which must be fulfilled in order to calculate expected utility and to apply the expected utility theorem. That is, the investor will buy the investment which will give them the highest expected utility. So the first one is called as comparability. So comparability means that for any given investment or lottery, okay, for a given investment or lottery, let's say in the investment there are two possible outcomes, A and B. These two outcomes can be let's just say one of them is your wealth goes to 120. Let's say you started with a wealth of 100, so it goes to a wealth of 120, or let's just call it 20% gain. Okay, or let me just call it 120, and the other alternative is, let's say it goes to 80. So these are the two alternatives you have. Okay, these are basically outcomes in a given investment. These two possible outcomes are there. So any outcomes, you can have n number of other outcomes. Okay, but for any given lottery, all the outcomes are comparable. Okay, so here you can see clearly A will be preferred to B, right? A is a better outcome as compared to B, right? So outcomes can be compared. Either A will be better than B, absolutely, that is A is strictly preferred to B. That is how this is called. This is a symbol from microeconomics. This is usually used in microeconomics. So A is preferred to B, or B is preferred to A, okay, or A and B are indifferent. So these are the three possible possibilities. So that would mean that either the utility, first case, utility of A is greater than utility of B. Okay, this is preferred to symbol. This is sort of curly greater than symbol. Okay, the other possibility is utility of B is greater than utility of A, or the third case is utility of A is equal to utility of B. Okay, so that is how it works. This is the comparability axiom. Okay, second one is called as the transitivity axiom. So transitivity axiom says that for three given outcomes or three given investments, even you can say this, okay, it applies to different investments as well, or different outcomes within the same investment. Let's call them A, B and C. Okay, if A is preferred to B and B is preferred to C, then it implies that A is preferred to C. This is obviously what transitivity means, that if A is better than B and B is better than C, then A is better than C. Effectively, you can say that the utility of A is greater than the utility of B, and the utility of B is greater than utility of C. It would imply that utility of A is greater than utility of C. So it's quite obvious. It just says that if you can say A is better than B and B is better than C, then A has to be better than C because it's better than B. So that's transitivity. Third one is independence. Okay. This one says that if an investor is indifferent between two certain outcomes, what do certain outcomes mean? Certain outcome means that they are sure to occur. Okay, so these two options, whatever outcomes we are discussing, are certain outcomes. You can view them separately even. So what do I mean? Like in this investment, these two outcomes will occur with 50-50% probability, or let's say 70 or 30 probability. Okay, so this whole thing, this is an investment or it's a lottery. That is, it has uncertain outcomes. But if you consider A alone, that is, your wealth goes from 100 to 120. Okay, or if you just consider this one separately, that is, your wealth goes from 100 to 80. These are individually certain outcomes. That is the difference between an investment lottery or an outcome. Okay, investment lottery is a combination of outcomes that you can achieve with different probabilities, but separately they are outcomes. Okay, separately, if I just consider, when I'm saying A, I just mean 100 going to 120 and not this scenario. This whole scenario I'm ignoring, the other part. Okay, so if I just say that is a certain outcome, that just means that 100 going to 120. Okay, so now what does this axiom say? So independence says that if an investor is indifferent between two certain outcomes A and B, that is, A is indifferent to B, then he'll also be indifferent between these two lotteries or investment. Following lotteries, or you can call them investment. Okay, what sort of lotteries? Lotteries of this form, where you get so let's call them lottery number 1 and 2. Lottery number 1 is where you get A with a probability of P and some other outcome C with a probability of 1 minus P. Okay, and the second lottery where you get B with a probability of P and C with a probability of 1 minus P. Let's look at what is happening. See, it is very simple to understand. It just says independence means that if A and B are indifferent, okay, A and B are two certain outcomes with no probabilities attached. For once, let's consider that. So if A and B are equivalent, that is, they are just the same amount of money that you're getting. Like that is what it means in terms of their utilities are equal. So yeah. The investor is indifferent between them. They don't have to be equal amount of money, but investor is equally happy with both, having both of them. So then these two lotteries will be indifferent. What lotteries? Lottery number one, where you get A with the probability of P and C with the probability of 1 minus P. Or the other lottery is B with the probability of P and C with the probability of 1 minus P. So these two lotteries will be indifferent. Why? Because A and B are indifferent. These are exactly the same except lottery 2 is B replaced with A. So that it won't affect the investor because there is independence. The utility that I derive from A and B is same. Okay, independent of what I get with it, right? So C does not influence the utility of A or B, right? That is what we are trying to say. So even if I put C with A and I put C with B with same probabilities, these two lotteries will have same amount of utility. Okay, so yeah, that is what it's trying to say. Okay, and next is certainty equivalence. Final principle is certainty equivalence. So what does certainty equivalence means? See, certainty equivalence means, let's say you have A which is preferred to B. Okay, let's say you have A which is preferred to B. So you can always find and let's just say A which is preferred to C, uh, A which is preferred to B, which is preferred to C, which would mean U of A is greater than U of B is greater than U of C. Okay, so these are three outcomes whose utilities are in this order, that A is the best, B is second, and C is the worst. So between A and C, if you construct a lottery with A and C with probability P and 1 minus P, okay, you can find a unique value of P which would make this equation hold true, that U of A multiplied with P plus U of C multiplied with 1 minus P is equal to U of B. So you can always find a unique P, or you can say there exists a unique P. You can say there exists a unique P. This is the symbol for there exists. There exists a unique P such that P is what? A certain probability such that this goes through. Such that B is equivalent of B, certainly getting B is equivalent of getting A with the probability of P and getting C with the probability of 1 minus P. Okay, so if there are two outcomes, A and C, and you're constructing a lottery with them where you're getting A with the probability of P and C with the probability of 1 minus P, okay, and B is between them. So you can find a value of P, some value of P, which would make this lottery with A with the probability of P and C with the probability of 1 minus P same as having equal utility as just having B with a probability of 1. Okay, so that is what it's saying, that you can always find a unique P which would make these two offers same. Okay, which is offer number 1 as this whole thing. Offer number 1 will be what? You getting A with the probability of P and C with the probability of 1 minus P, and offer 2 will be, just getting b with the probability of 1. These two can be equivalent. You can always find a value of p because b is between the two. So if you take a weighted average of the two, you can always find such a weight which would make the weighted average same as b. That is what it is saying. So it's just common sense. Okay, so this is what we have got. Let's move on to a question.